Hi there my friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing some gouache paints sent to me by a company called Loxley Arts here in the UK. They contacted me a couple of months ago, asked me if I'd like to review their gouache, and I said yes. So I chose just 5 colours from them as they come in quite big pots and I didn't want to seem greedy. So the pots of paint are 40mm, so quite big, and I just chose a limited palette: blue, red, raw ochre, black and titanium white. There were 25 different colours to choose from. Now obviously I've worked with gouache before, but I hadn't worked with the Loxley Arts Gouache before, so I didn't sample them or swatch them out or anything like that. Now if you've not worked with gouache before, I do recommend you swatch them out, because darks can dry a little bit lighter, lighter colours can dry a little bit darker, and if you're not used to that variable within the paint, it can be a bit tricky sometimes. But being I'd worked with gouache before, I was more than happy just to get this sketch sorted out and then crack on with the painting. Now if you want to know how I put my sketch onto this piece of watercolour paper, that is in another video that I'm releasing on the same day as this video, and it's a review of a light pad. So if you look for Elise UK light pad review, it's that video, and it'll just show you quickly how I get this drawing onto paper. Okay, so I'm working with the 5 gouache colours on a porcelain palette. If you've worked with gouache before, you'll know that the colours can be reconstituted with water. So that means if they dry on your palette, if they dry out completely, you can leave them for days. I did with these, and I just added a little drop of water with a pipette, and hey presto, your colours come back to life on your palette and you don't get any wastage, which is wonderful. Having said that, that can be a drawback, and that's why some people don't like gouache, because they can be reconstituted on your painting as well. So if you want to, you can lift earlier layers by adding water. Sometimes that's something that you want to do on purpose, and sometimes it happens when you don't want it to. However, what I find with gouache is I like to get a layer down and then hair dry it. So use a heating tool or a hairdryer. I use a hairdryer on sort of a medium setting, and then just really set the paint into the paper. You can still lift it with water, but it's less reactive that way, or that's how I've found. Now here you can see I've put just some dark black, some black with a little bit of blue mixed in and a little bit of red, so it's got a bit of a purple hint to it. Can't get the words out today. And now I'm just applying some of the white with a little cotton wool bud. These are recyclable cotton wool buds. These stick in the middle, isn't plastic, it is paper. Thought I'd just let you know that. So what I'm doing here is I'm just testing the opacity of the white, and also see how well it can handle glazes, which is what I'll put on top of the white. So this piece for me, I'd already come up with the idea of this painting subject ages ago, but I didn't know what I wanted to paint it in. Then when Loxley Arts contacted me regarding gouache, 2 and 2 make 4 in my world, and this just seemed like the right project to create with these products. So so I found that the white went on beautifully. Throughout this video, throughout this project, the paints did exactly what I wanted them to do. They're amazing, they really are. They're a beautiful consistency. Each colour is consistent with the previous colour, as in, you know, the lifting tendencies, mixing tendencies, pigment intensity. Brilliant, all brilliant. Anyway, cracking on. So as you can see, I'm just glazing a little bit of a lighter purple over the white. Now with gouache, if I was to scrub this backwards and forwards with either that cotton wool bud or a brush, the layers will just lift. That is just part and parcel of working with gouache. But if you're very gentle, use a gentle hand, the previous layers can remain undisturbed, especially if you're hair drying them or heat setting them between each layer. Okay, so I was happy with the background. I just wanted an out of focus fuzzy background, and yeah, I was happy with that. So moving on to the foreground. A lot of illustrators used to like using gouache because of its properties, one of them being a matte finish, which is perfect if you want to photograph and make prints from your work. Not many gouache paints are 100% light fast, and the light fast rating that I could find on these Loxley Arts Gouache Paints was rated as good. Okay, so what I'll probably be doing, I have framed this painting. I've got it hanging on my wall. It's not in direct sunlight, it's just a well lit room. I'll watch how it how the colours change, if they do. I don't think they will, because the colours I chose are quite single pigmented anyway, so I can't see there being a problem, but I'll just keep an eye on it. But I will be making prints from this, and if anybody wants a print, just let me know in the comments below and I can point you in the right direction. Right, okay, I have written some notes down because I didn't want to forget anything, so I was writing notes down as I was working. Yep, all the colours can be reactivated on the painting if needed, and this was ideal later on when I wanted blurry lines. The cogs in the background, the edges of quite crisp of the metal cogs, but I wanted them to look at slightly out of focus around the edges. So what I did, I painted the cogs in normally, and then when everything was dry and heat set, I just took a small clean brush, a little bit of water on there, and just blurred out the edges, just mixed the edges of the background and the cogs together very, very delicately, which shows that even after heat setting and even after being left for a couple of days, the colours can be reactivated. And as I said, some people like that in gouache, some people stay clear of gouache because of that. Yeah. Everybody's different, everybody's art style and preferences of mediums is different, and I just like working with everything. So, and I love gouache. I wanted to test out working light over dark, well, working dark over light. So if you're used to watercolours, you'll know that you work from light to dark. You can do that with gouache. If you like working in acrylics and oils, you can work dark to light. You can do that with gouache. So it's a very, very pliable medium. It'll do exactly what you want it to do without really many surprises, to be quite honest. So here you can see I've finished, well, more or less finished the foreground, working dark to light, just a little bit of pointillism going on there. On the cog, I'm just adding water. I'm using deionized water, the sort of water you buy for car batteries. So it's it's very pure. There's no impurities in it. And I've watered the gouache down to the consistency of a watercolour. And I just want to see how strong the pigment is and how well it moves across the wet paper. Wet in wet technique. The reason I'm trying it on this cog in the background is because it's a wet in wet technique that I want to use on the Gecko. So why not try it out first on the cog in the background. Lifting a little bit of the dark paint out there with a wet brush so it lifts. Obviously not straight back to white paper because black is staining the paper. When something stains the paper, the pigment particles are very small and they sink right into the tooth of the paper, so they're quite stubborn. That's why you can't lift some colours out, because they've actually right down into the tooth of the paper, where others sort of bigger pigment particles sit about on the top, and you can lift them quite easily, and if you're quick enough they won't stain the paper too much. And sometimes you can get back to near enough white. It all depends on the colour you're using and the pigment that's been used to make that colour, and how finely that pigment has been ground down. Okay, a little bit more wet into wet. That paper's still damp. As I said before, between each layer, I've not filmed it, but I actually go over the paper and really dry it well with a hairdryer. Then when I turn the hairdryer off, give the paper a couple of minutes to cool back down before I'm working on top of it again. So switch round to another angle now. Little bit of stippling. So paint's not too, the paper's completely dry now. The paint is sort of a medium consistency now. Not too runny because I don't want it running everywhere, and not too runny, I don't want my paper to start cockling either. The paper I'm using is a sheet of Arches cold press, £140 watercolour paper, and I've torn it from a block, a pre-stretched Arches block. It's a beautiful paper. Oh, another good thing about gouache, if you're into mixed media, working with different mediums on the same painting, gouache creates a texture, a tooth, all of its own. So even if you're going on to really smooth paper and you paint on with gouache, when it's dry, it becomes textured. There's a slight toothiness to it, a little bit like a very fine sandpaper. So then on top of that, you could go on with dry mediums such as oil pencils or wax-based pencils or pastels, for instance. And because they're all dry mediums, they won't lift the layers underneath. Just an idea if you want to work in mixed mediums. So here I've done a little bit of glazing, and in the next clip the page is actually turned round, so you will see the depth of colour. The pigment in this colour was amazing. It really is full of pigment, very vibrant pigments as well. Obviously you can tone those down with your mixing, but yeah, look at that, that's looking lovely. Okay, so building up a little bit of wet on wet, wet on dry here for this cog, and really I'm just playing with the paint, seeing what it can do for me. It is a paint that I will be using again. It's beautiful. Nothing, no down thumbs at all thumbs up for these Loxley Arts Gouache paints. Now you can see letting it run back into that black, giving all of this cog a little bit more texture. I did choose the cold press paper because it is a textured paper. I did have a play with the gouache paints on a little scrap of hot press smooth paper. Wasn't going to be ideal for this project. And you don't know till you try. And I didn't want to get this far and then realise I wish I'd have gone with a textured paper, so hence trying it out first on a little scrap. Sort of a 2" by 2" scrap piece of paper is enough to give you an idea of whether a piece of paper is going to work for your project or not. If there's any art materials you'd like me to review, please let me know. Just add it in the comments below. I've been doing quite a few commissioned work, and I've had a recent exhibition which has taken up time, so now back to filming again. It's lovely. I do have another review lined up to be filmed, but I haven't started that one yet. But if there's any subjects or mediums you'd like to see me cover, just let me know and I'll add them to my to-do list. I hope everybody's keeping well and keeping safe and keeping creative. Have any of you worked up with gouache before? And if so, just let me know in the comments, what did you create and which brand did you like to use? It's really interesting to find out. I do have some Paul Rubens wax pastel crayons that I need to review, but I'll be doing them soon. Okay, what else did we use? Right, the brushes I'm using are Taklon. So the Taklon bristle brushes I used in this painting, a little bit firmer. I'm not that keen on using my watercolour brushes when I'm experimenting with gouache, because I didn't know the consistency of this gouache. I didn't want to use my best watercolour brushes because they're a little bit soft, and when you're pushing around large quantities of paint on your palette, it can be a bit of a hard work for a delicate watercolour brush. But these brushes, they're fine. I used some by Rowney and some by Royal Langnickel. So all golden Taklon bristle brushes. They're vegan, no animals were harmed in the making of these brushes, completely synthetic. I'm just looking down my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. No, I think I've mentioned everything. So just building up the texture a little bit at a time. I am working from photographs, so I do keep stopping and looking. I don't print anything out. I don't print any reference images out. I've said it in videos before, but I have been asked a couple of times. No, I just take photos or use copyright-free photos or photos that have been gifted to me, and I just work from those on my iPad normally, or on a display monitor, either way. But I very, very rarely, if ever, print any images out. For the simple reason is you need a really, really good printer to get a decent quality colour that matches what you actually want. And also the inks and everything, it's not good for the environment, so I don't print them out. So I sketch from my iPad or from Life, or from a display monitor, and then I paint from those as well. So the only thing I would print out are black and white sketches. If I've done a digital sketch and I need the sketch printing out, as I did for this, so I could transfer it over onto the watercolour paper, that's the only thing I print out, just in black and white. And then it gets filed away because it will possibly be used again. Okay, moving on. So a little bit of wet on dry going on to this. And it's really rinse and repeat. It's the same, the same, the same. As you can see, some of the background did go onto the edge of the cog, but that's fine because these colours are very opaque and I can build up layers just covering those marks over. And as I said in the beginning of the video, I do end up going around the edges of the cogs a day or so after finishing the painting and blending the background and the edge of the cog together to give it a blurry, out of focus feel. So while the paper's still a little bit damp, just adding a little bit more colour and texture to the edge of this cog. And the other cog will be worked exactly the same. A little bit more colour, and it's absolutely amazing really. I mean, 5 colours, 2 of those titanium white and black, and the variety of colour you can mix is amazing. And I think some people, they won't give it a try. And that's a shame if you don't want to try and mix your own colours. I mean, sometimes, yeah, when you're learning, you do end up with sort of mud more times than not. But it's a learning curve, and when you do achieve a colour mix that you really like, it's a wonderful feeling. It's an achievement, another pat on the back. So that white is beautifully opaque, isn't it? It's the highlights going onto there, beautiful. Just what I wanted. Okay, so the other cog is now in as well, so it was done exactly the same as the previous cog. Now onto the Gecko. So working wet on wet, I'd already gone on with some water and then just dropping the colour in. And the gouache I'd really watered down in the palette. Now it's watered down like you would watercolour. So still quite opaque though, but translucent enough for the white of the paper to show through. So using it more like a watercolour than anything else now. So more water going on there, ready to drop in some colour. And obviously the more you water down a product, the less light fast it is, because obviously the particles are spread further apart, so they've got less protection. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But as I said, most artists in the past, when using gouache, were using it for illustrative work, animation work. So the images would be reproduced. So it didn't really matter how light fast or not the originals were. I'm hoping that the light fast in these paints is really good, because they are single pigments, so there shouldn't be a problem at all. But I'll be selling prints of this, and I've got the original hanging on my wall, framed. A little bit more going into that wet on wet, and then I can build gradually up the other layers going onto the top of this as soon as it's dry. Don't forget, every layer I put on, I do dry it with the hairdryer, just so it's set into the paper and there's less likelihood of it lifting if I don't want it to. With gouache also, if you've got a very light hand, you can actually do your whole painting in shades of grey, monotone painting, get all your shadows in, leave all your highlights showing, and then if you heat set it, and then you can go on with your colours and glaze it. As long as you use light hand and very soft brush strokes, it can be achieved quite easily. Nothing to be afraid of at all. I want to say a huge thank you to all the people who have been liking and watching my videos, and to all my new subscribers, that's lovely, and to all my existing subscribers, thanks so much. It's you're all a blessing. Thank you for the people that have been following me and the different social media platforms, that's lovely, and the feedback regarding the videos is brilliant, thank you. If you haven't already liked this video and you're enjoying this one, then please hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, then please hit the subscribe button as well, because that really helps my algorithms, and it puts my videos in front of people who might enjoy them too, so that's lovely. So yeah, like, subscribe, and shares. If you know anybody that'd be interested in my videos, then please feel free to share them on social media. That's brilliant, thank you very much. Okay, so we're going on wet on dry now. So nice wet paint, consistency of watercolour now, onto dry paper that's been dried with the hairdryer. I just picked up a very cheap hairdryer from a local superstore. It's sort of a £5, £6 hairdryer, and it just hangs next to my drawing board and does the job. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need expensive heat tools and things like that for working with acrylics, watercolours and gouache. If you just want to dry your painting quickly, then a cheap bog standard hairdryer will do the trick. Okay, more of the same, getting a little bit of variation in the tone in those little spots, so they're not all the same darkness all the way across these little head and body. Just yeah, little bit of variance there. And now a little bit of pointillism, just putting some colour in with little dots, just building up the texture now. It's the same idea, same formulation, I guess, as I used for the sand. So just building up the texture of the skin just with little dots of paint, and I do end up going between darks and lights and just working over and over again the same areas, but still hopefully letting the white of the paper show through. And this paper isn't stark white, but it's white enough. It's not a brilliant white, it's more of a natural white, which goes nice with a natural subject. And there he is, finished. I didn't film it all because you would have been asleep by the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed watching this little gecko come to life. I enjoyed creating him. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comments below. Please hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And let me know what you think of gouache paints. Have you used them before? Have you worked with different subjects in gouache, and which do you prefer? Any comments below, I always read them, I always reply. It's lovely to get a sort of a community feeling going, and I'll leave it at that for now. So if you haven't, check out the other video regarding the light pad review that enabled me to get the initial sketch onto this piece of watercolour paper. And stay safe, people, stay creative. Thank you so much for your ongoing love and comments and support. It's all really, really appreciated. Stay safe, stay creative, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now. Bye bye.